behind the scenes has backed one movie, one situation after another to bring this before the public, to prepare us for the coming of the saucers, to prepare us, the saucer people, they say we need them to prepare us to repel an invasion that's coming from Orion. I've read that in a number of places in occult material now. But this man here, he made it clear, MacArthur, that he believed the next world war would be fought with beings from outer space. It's interesting, isn't it? A man of real insight. But when the Outer Space Connection came out, it wasn't a science fiction movie. It was to prove archaeologically the existence of this. When this movie Close Encounters came out, it merged all religions into one thing and had a great event at the end of it that counterfeited the coming of Jesus Christ with a flying saucer. They gained the location from notes that came from Hinduism. We look at Star Wars, and there the teachings of the cosmic force of nature are put out before the minds of the children and embedded there in preparation for them to accept witchcraft. And then they can play with the toys. How much truth is there in Star Wars? One magazine, a UFO magazine from the 70s, brings this out. It says that since the beginning of the Ford administration and continuing with Carter, the government has been coming to the realization that these facts can no longer be hid. There could be a sudden crisis with an urgent need for quick mobilization. There, Star Wars was shown 6 months before it was released in the White House to the President, his cabinet, and representatives from other countries, even CIA. Why? Why was Star Wars so important? The answer is simple. It says Star Wars is successful because a large portion is absolutely true. Star Wars was conceived to condition the public to accept the danger of possible invasion from outer space. For 2 centuries, Johannes Kepler tried to solve the mystery that there should have been a planet between Mars and Jupiter. There was a discovery by Giuseppe Piazzi in Palermo, Italy, in 1801 that he found a 70 magnitude star there, a planetoid, and after that they have found many of them. There's a whole ring of asteroids in that area where a planet once existed. The late Dr. George H. Harrison worked in his later life, worked with contactees, and they all came up with one story. Satan is trying to bring a story to people, and that is that thousands of years ago there was a galactic federation, the Milky Way. Because of almost inconceivable tasks of governing it, they turned everything over to a robot or computer police force. The Earth-like Maldek, for example, began to experiment, they said, with atomic fission, a practice forbidden under the old human order. But they continued. The result was, finally, a chain reaction destroyed Maldek atmosphere in a searing blaze. Then the entire planet exploded. Not all the inhabitants were bad. Some of those inhabitants were taken by other planetary saucer people and brought to this Earth so they could start a world over again from here. And it talks about this infinite planet, Earth racked with volcanic fire and other natural catastrophes, a great flood, terrible plagues, and other events of biblical history. And they tie the Bible right into this whole. This is believed, you see, by men that are working behind the scenes in our government. Maldek, this planet, in this article here from an occult book, it quotes a passage from the Bible. It says, Lucifer, how art thou fallen from the heavens, O Lucifer, son of the morning, how art thou cast down to the ground. Maldek is called that bright star that exploded and was destroyed, and the beings were brought down to this planet. In Star Wars, this discovery is made in the movie as they come into this, they find that a planet is now gone, and in its place are these meteors. The non-human characters in Star Wars, such as 3PO, Wookiee, Jawa, and so on, they're entertaining to the kids and the audiences. The reason is because any UFO investigator knows that these are more real than the characters in the film as they're brought from the files. Demons are educating, are entertaining our children. Lucas had an experience with flying saucer, and this, I'm sorry, the first part of the quote isn't here. It says that we need to be part of the Space Confederation, that the dark forces are soon coming from Orion, and we have to be ready to repulse that invasion. E.T. has been posed as the God of this age. You see that symbol of the 2 fingers, a symbol of God creating man. This little children's book shows the story. I don't even like to show these things. It shows the story. Flying saucer comes down. These beings are thousands of years old. They come down. A little boy surprises one of them. They make fast friends. The being takes control of the boy's soul, control of his mind. Everything that happens to one happens to the other. Sympathetic magic from the occult. And then this little being is taught English. He acts like a little baby. Everybody falls in love with him. It's half of a comedy. Then he dies, you see, and to save the little boy who's dying as a result of their soul being united. Then he dies. He dies first, and then he raises himself up from the dead. He died to save the little boy. Then he raises himself up because he's going to have to go away now. He's going to have to go away and leave his disciples behind, all his disciples, even the dog, because nature is part of the New Age movement. Kisses their Messiah goodbye. And then the last scene, touching. Everybody's crying their heads off. You see, they fall in love with this thing that looks like a lizard. And to me, that's a manifestation of Satan himself. But he puts his finger on the forehead of the little boy and he says, I will be with you always. Here. The third eye. That mystical area where Satan can manipulate people's feelings and emotions. Spielberg says, I did this, I tried to create a creature that only a mother could love, and he took things about little babies and worked it into this so that people would naturally be drawn to it. Flying saucers are hitting us from every direction. Rock and roll music, toys, you name it. And probably the biggest thing of all is this idea of video games. It says up at the top, alien creatures in the home through video games. And one movie came out, and this boy played video games, and the reason for the video games is because beings from other planets were watching him, watching for a guy who was good enough to help them out in their Star Wars. And then they came down from the heavens and took this kid that was good at video games. UFOs converting the disbelievers with science, you say. Now this is probably the most startling article that I can read. UFO Magazine. It binds in the ideas of Catholic miracles with UFOs. Now, I think I missed something there, didn't I? There it is. Okay, there it is. You know, Catholic miracles are taking place at a higher rate now than they ever have in history. Every other day in the newspaper, Catholic miracles, weeping Madonnas, bleeding hands, bleeding statues. In this situation, the people are looking at blood from a saint that's supposed to liquefy every certain year. But the most powerful of all was in 1968 in Zaytun, Egypt, when Mary appeared above the cathedral there and flying saucers took place over her heads. Before the turn of the century, Reverend Jerome Palmer carried out in Wales, and oh no, this is another one here, wrote a history about Our Lady returns. Okay. Okay, now this is referring to the Wales Protestant revivals, and it describes here great shafts of light. The people were transfigured, they spoke in tongues, orbs of light would stream from the heavens. Hundreds of people were witnesses of these displays. It was a Protestant Christian revival in Wales, the British Isles. Now, I have to skip a lot of these folks. I'm sorry, but if you get the video, you can read them. You just put pause, see? Anyway, the lights returned with a woman preacher. And this woman preacher even had more flying saucers and stuff appear out there. And then finally, this is Mrs. Mary Jones, a woman preacher who had received the claim of direct call from God to preach. Powerful. Wherever she went, the area light seemed to follow her. But the biggest thing was at Fatima. This was something that was to shock the world. The mysterious aerial disc made a startling recovery in 1917. 70,000 people watched what happened there. And at the height of this phenomenon, the first figure to manifest was an apparition of a man who appeared from the mist and comforted the children. He said, do not fear, don't fear. The climax of this whole situation with the manifestation of Mary there at Fatima was this. She said, Mary said, this demon in the skies of a human being said, September 17th, I'm going to do a miracle that will astound the entire world. So the people gathered, and this was the miracle. The darkened sky suddenly began to illuminate. The cloud bank departed and revealed a great shiny disk in the heavens, and it came flying down before the people. In terror they scattered. This was the miracle to astound the world, a flying saucer. I asked Alberto about this. Oh yes, he says. The flying saucers will support the Roman Catholic Church in the end, you see. Spiritualism will support the religious teachings of the day. Friends, this is coming. There is nothing to stop it. It's going to come. All it's waiting for is God's people to begin the work. One television program called V on Friday nights, and V, there's your V, symbol of the serpent. These beings from outer space on this program will take their skin off. I've never seen it. People just told me about it. They'll pull their skin off and they'll have the face of a lizard underneath. You see, that Satan is telling people something, and then he laughs as they just think this is silly or hokey. This man here, Officer Shermer, drew a picture of the saucer being he saw it, and on his chest there was a winged serpent. When the ecumenical movement came into being, it made a platform by which the saucer movement and spiritualism could work with the religious, because they started breaking down the differences between all religions, Hinduism, Buddhism,